Before Allen Sinclair walked into Essence Matthews' life, there was already a story inside her that nobody had fully read. There was a girl who learned family secrets too young, a wife who felt trapped between love, motherhood, faith, and ambition, a mother who left her children and called it survival, a woman who drank to forget the pain, only to wake up one night with a wound she could no longer explain away. And before Essence ever found herself sitting in Allen's townhouse, writing goodbye in a letter he would later find on the refrigerator, she had already spent years running from another life she could not face. Before we begin, please like, follow, and share. If you are watching on YouTube, subscribe to Whispers of Grace Stories and follow the Kindred Spirits series. A new story is released every Thursday. The first morning in her new apartment, Essence woke before sunrise. For a few seconds, she forgot where she was. Then, she saw the half-open boxes along the wall, her clothes folded over a chair, and the keys to a place that was finally hers sitting on the nightstand. She lay still, listening. There were no footsteps in the hallway, no sound of Allen moving through the townhouse, no business calls, no heavy silence from a life that looked beautiful on the outside but kept making her feel smaller. She was free, but freedom did not feel peaceful yet. It felt unfamiliar. Her phone sat beside her. Essence reached for it, then stopped. The night before, a woman had answered Cowleen's phone, not his mother, not one of the boys, a woman. And the sound of that voice stayed with her, calm and comfortable, like she belonged near the man Essence had once called husband. Essence closed her eyes. She had left Allen, but leaving Allen had not put her old life back in place. Colin had changed, her sons had grown, and the past had kept moving, while Essence was still trying to survive the choices that brought her here. Lying in her new apartment, Essence's mind went back to the summer she stayed with her Aunt Marjorie in New Jersey. She had not thought about that summer in years, but that morning, the memory came back clearly. Maybe because she was alone again. Maybe because she was trying to understand when she first started wanting more than the life everyone expected her to live. That summer opened up something in Essence. She started writing little stories and eventually wrote a play for the neighborhood kids to perform outside for people sitting on their porches. At the time, it felt simple. Something fun to do, something that kept her mind busy. But looking back, Essence could see that writing gave her a place to put the things she noticed, but did not always know how to say. She paid attention to people, their conversations, their moods, the way adults said one thing but meant another, the way families could smile in public and still carry tension behind closed doors. Essence did not know it then, but writing was becoming more than a hobby. It was becoming the thing that made her feel seen. Then there was Colin Matthews. Colin was not a stranger. He was familiar in all the ways that made a young woman feel safe. Childhood sweetheart, shared history, shared community, shared church. He knew her family, she knew his, and being with him felt like the natural next step in a life everyone around them already understood. They married young enough to believe love would answer questions they had not learned how to ask. For a while, Essence tried to become the woman everyone seemed proud of. Wife, mother, church member, a woman with a respectable family, and 2 beautiful sons. Joshua and Michael were her heart. Her twins were the kind of blessing people pointed to when they wanted to remind her she should be satisfied. And Essence loved them deeply. But love did not silence the restlessness growing inside her. Motherhood gave her purpose, but it did not erase her gift. It did not kill her dream. It did not stop her from wondering if there was more to her life than being known only by who she belonged to. Colin loved Essence, but he did not always understand her ambition. He wanted steadiness. He wanted family. He wanted their sons raised around the same people, in the same church, and the same foundation that had held him together. He suggested she open a flower shop in Meadow Heights, something respectable, something close, something that would let her create without pulling the family apart. But Essence did not hear opportunity. She heard limitation. She did not want to open a flower shop for a hobby. She wanted to be a writer. She wanted published work, recognition, a life that made room for the woman she wanted to be. To Cowlin, her ambition started to look like distance. To Essence, his resistance started to feel like a cage. She was tired of people treating a woman's growth like rebellion. Tired of hearing that wanting more meant she was ungrateful. When Essence asked Cowlin if they could move to Crest Haven, she tried to make it sound practical. They would be closer to the journalist job she accepted. They could build something new away from familiarity, and he could still work over the road. But Cowlin refused to move. From his hometown, his family, his church. Essence heard his no as rejection. Cowlin heard her request as abandonment. Their arguments became quieter over time, which somehow made them worse. Loud arguments at least admitted something was broken. Quiet ones let the fracture spread beneath the surface. Then, Essence made the choice that would haunt her longer than she expected. One day she left while Cowlin was on the road for work, because she did not have the courage to look him in the face and say goodbye. Leaving Cowlin hurt. Leaving Joshua and Michael nearly destroyed her. The twins were only 8, old enough to feel the loss, but too young to understand the storm that created it. Essence told them she would be no more than an hour and a half away. She told them they will be coming to stay with her on her days off. She told them to be strong and help their father. But children know when adults are dressing up disappointment. The boys did not want strength. They wanted their mother. Essence left with guilt screaming louder than the engine. For the first few weeks, Essence believed she had chosen freedom. Then freedom turned cold. Cowlin refused to let the boys visit. Essence's mom stopped calling. The small apartment Essence had been so desperate to claim began to feel less like independence and more like punishment. So Essence worked. Then she worked harder. At the regional newspaper, she became the woman who could handle anything: deadlines, pressure, long hours, top assignments, passive-aggressive co-workers who smiled in her face and whispered behind her back. She took the best stories and paid for them with pieces of herself. At first, drinking was just something to soften the edges. A glass of wine after work, a bottle after a bad week, a little help sleeping. Then wine became something much stronger. Essence did most of her drinking alone. That was how she kept control, or at least how she pretended she had control. She knew how to show up polished. She knew how to smile in meetings. She knew how to order water at dinner after drinking before she left the apartment. She knew how to answer emails, meet deadlines, and make people believe she was only tired. But behind closed doors, Essence was unraveling. Her flower pots dried out on the patio. The garden she once treated like therapy became a collection of withered stems and dead soil. She stopped writing for herself, stopped praying unless the words came out as desperate whispers, stopped looking too long in mirrors. Then one night, after a brutal workday, she came home and realized there was nothing left in the apartment to drink. No wine, no vodka, nothing. The need rose in her so fast it frightened her. She remembered a local bar she had passed several times, the kind of place she would have judged before desperation humbled her. She had seen people outside laughing too loudly, leaning too close, carrying the kind of energy that made her lock her doors at red lights. But desperation does not ask for dignity. It just drives. Essence went inside alone. The music was heavy. The air smelled like liquor, sweat, perfume, and bad decisions. She told herself she would have one drink and leave, but one became another, then another. Then the night started breaking into pieces. The last clear thing she remembered was walking into the women's restroom, unsteady and detached, like her mind had stepped outside her body and left her there. When she woke up, she was on the floor, cold tile against her cheek, her hair tangled, her body aching in a way that made her spirit go silent before her mouth could form a sound. Her clothes were not the way she remembered them. The room was spinning, but the truth was still. Something had happened to her. Essence did not call the police. She did not call her mother. She did not call Cowlin. She did not call her sister Laura. She decided to run in shame instead. After that night, Essence drank harder, not because she wanted to be reckless, but because being sober made her remember. And remembering made her feel like she was being violated all over again, one quiet moment at a time. She told herself it was punishment. Punishment for leaving her husband, punishment for leaving her children, punishment for wanting more than the life she had been given. But shame is a liar with a familiar voice, and Essence had started believing everything it said. Eventually, Cowlin allowed the boys to visit. For Essence, those weekends became oxygen. Joshua and Michael brought life back into the apartment. Their laughter filled rooms that had learned too much silence. They left shoes in the wrong places, argued over television, asked for snacks, and made Essence feel like something inside her could still be restored. But motherhood on weekends did not fix what she was hiding during the week. One Friday, after a rough stretch at work, Essence went home determined to drink herself into quiet. Deadlines were chasing her. Co-workers had been digging at her confidence. Her mind would not stop replaying the night she wanted to erase. She opened a bottle, then another. Then the room slipped away. She did not wake up to sunlight. She woke up to water. Cowlin had found her unconscious and put her in the bathtub, trying to bring her back while panic tore through his hands. The boys were nearby, frightened and confused. Essence opened her eyes and saw what her choices had done, not just to her, to them. Later, when her body was steadier and the room stopped spinning, Cowlin sat with her. His face was not cruel. That made it worse. He looked tired, hurt, determined. Then Essence saw bags by the door. He had packed some of her things, not because he was throwing her away, but because he was taking her to treatment. Essence fought him at first. She said the newspaper needed her. She said she had just gotten the boys back in her life. She said she could stop on her own. She said everything people say when denial is trying to survive exposure. But then she looked at Joshua and Michael, her sons, her sunshine in all that darkness. Something broke open. She cried the kind of cry that does not care who hears it, the kind that strips pride down to its bones. Cowlin drove her to the treatment center. He handled the paperwork. He still carried her under his insurance, and even though they were living separate lives, he did what love does. He helped save her life. Before Essence walked through the double doors, she hugged her boys so tightly they could barely breathe. She kissed their faces. Then she turned to Cowlin, kissed him softly, and whispered, "Thank you." It was not enough to repair what she had broken, but it was the first honest thing she had said in a long time. Treatment was not what Essence imagined. It was not soft robes, peaceful music, and gentle walks through gardens. It was early mornings, detox, group therapy, counseling, medication, hard conversations, and classes that forced her to sit with the truth instead of decorating it with excuses. There were people from every walk of life: nurses, veterans, blue-collar workers, professionals, mothers, fathers. Pain did not care about status. Addiction did not care about education. Trauma did not care how well you dressed. For the first time, Essence could not hide behind being gifted, pretty, ambitious, or misunderstood. In treatment, everybody had a story, and everybody had to decide whether they were going to keep lying to themselves or live. One of her hardest moments came when she had to speak about the assault. She had buried it under alcohol, work, makeup, and silence. But buried pain does not disappear. It leaks. It poisons. It waits for quiet. Saying the words out loud nearly split her open, but it also began to set her free. Then came the family session. Essence dreaded calling her mother. In Janine's mind, alcohol was something people chose, not something that could become shackles. But when Essence told her why she had left, what had happened to her, and how far she had fallen, Janine's voice changed. For once, there was no lecture, no sharp correction, no judgment dressed up as concern. Only tears. That did not heal everything overnight. Families are not repaired in one session. But truth had entered the room, and truth has a way of making space where shame used to sit. 8 weeks later, Essence walked out of treatment different, not fixed, different. She had new habits, new boundaries, a plan for aftercare, a job editing books from home, a clearer mind, a softer spirit, and a fear of relapse that kept her humble. When Colin and the boys came to pick her up, each of them held one red rose. Essence nearly fell apart at the sight. She felt blessed, unworthy, loved in a way she knew she had not earned. Back at her apartment, she began rebuilding slowly. She cleaned, reorganized, threw away what reminded her of the darkest nights. She revived her patio garden, touching soil again like she was touching a part of herself she thought had died. She and Cowlin still lived in separate homes. There was still damage, still distant, still things their sons did not fully know how to say. But for the first time in a long time, Essence was not running every time the truth got close. That fall, Essence started walking each morning. It became part of her recovery. Wake up early, breathe, move, pray when she could, listen when words would not come. Her favorite route took her past a used bookstore and a small cafe next door called the Coffee House on Mercer. Some mornings, she went to the bookstore first. Other mornings, she grabbed her macchiato before browsing through novels, poetry books, and journals. One particular morning, Essence brought flowers from her patio garden, autumn roses. She had cut them for Eve, the bookstore owner, a woman who always seemed to know when Essence needed conversation and when she only needed quiet. The flowers were wrapped simply. Nothing expensive, nothing staged. Just something living from a woman who was learning how to live again. Essence stepped into the coffee house on Mercer, ordered her usual macchiato, and held the flowers close while she waited. Then she heard a man's voice. "Beautiful flowers. Did you get them nearby?" Essence looked up. He was well-dressed, average height, medium build, olive skin, short dark hair, clean-shaven, and polished in a way that did not look accidental. His confidence entered the space before he did, but his eyes carried something tired beneath the charm. Essence smiled politely. "No," she said. "I actually have a flower garden. I picked these this morning for a friend." He looked at the flowers, then back at her. "Well, if you are selling them, I would love to stop by and get some." Essence laughed softly. "I don't sell flowers. I grow them on my patio as a hobby. But if you're here tomorrow, I can bring you a small arrangement." His eyebrows lifted. "You would do that for a stranger?" "It's flowers," Essence said. "Not a kidney." They both laughed. For a moment, it felt harmless, ordinary, like two people meeting in a coffee shop with no idea that their wounds were about to recognize each other before their wisdom could catch up. "Do you happen to have lilies?" he asked. "Yes," Essence said. "A few. Their season is almost over, but I can bring some." He reached into his jacket and handed her a business card. "Allen Sinclair." Essence glanced down. Marketing executive. Then she looked back up, careful not to seem impressed. My name is Essence. Allen smiled. Intriguing name. Then he walked away, leaving Essence standing there with cooled coffee, autumn roses, and no idea that the man who had just admired her flowers would one day become part of the life she would have to find the courage to leave. Essence's story did not start with Allen. It started long before him. She did not lose herself all at once. It happened piece by piece. Through a dream she felt guilty for wanting, a marriage she did not know how to repair, a drink to numb the pain, and a night she tried to erase from her memory. The morning she met Allen Sinclair, she had no idea that some people enter your life not because they are the answer, but because they reveal the places in you that still need to be healed. This has been Kindred Spirits, Season 1, Episode 3, The Life She Tried to Outrun. Please follow, share, and subscribe. A new story every Thursday.